Hi guys, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about nails today. I think it's one of those things that we should all probably do a little bit more frequently than we actually do. So I wanted to spend some time talking about kind of all of my different thoughts on nails and nail trims and what all of that kind of looks like. In general, a couple of things about dog nails. One is we should probably do it way more frequently than most of us are doing it. So in general, I would like to clip my dog's nails about every 2 weeks. If you go much longer than that, then what tends to happen is the quicks inside of their nail, the quick is the tender part, the part that bleeds if you clip it too short, the quicks will grow out with the nail as the nail grows out, and what happens over time is that quick gets pretty stinking long, and then you can't cut the nail back as short as you want it to go. So if you do more regular nail trims, it actually keeps those quicks nice and short. And then you don't have to worry about their nails causing them long-term side effects, because what happens is over time, and granted I'm not a veterinarian, I'm not a groomer, I'm just looking at this from a behavior standpoint, but what I have noticed with my own dogs is when I've let their nails go too long, what happens when that nail grows out is it shifts how your dog stands on their feet. So instead of standing kind of more firmly square on their toes, they kind of rock back a little bit because those nails grow out too far, and that impacts their walking. So over time, as you can imagine, if you're using your feet in a different way than they were originally intended, then that can lead to injuries, it can lead to arthritis, all kinds of not great things. And so you probably can't quite see him, he's just off camera here. Cairo is my senior dog, and he has a lot of arthritis in many different areas, and I think a big factor of that is due to the fact that we didn't keep his nails as short as we should have. Now, since I've been better and more diligent about doing his nails, we actually have gotten those quicks to recede back to a more normal level. So we are able to get them quite a bit shorter now, but he went a large portion of his life having nails that were too long. So something that's super important to work on. Now, a couple of things. When we're teaching dogs how to get their nails done, I want to make sure it's super positive for them. I want them to enjoy getting their nails done. I actually had to put my two girls away with good chewies, because if they know that I have the nail clippers out, they will shove each other out of the way to get their nails done first. So that's what I'm looking for. I want dogs that are super excited about nail time and really animated about getting their nails done. Now, for most of us, that's not where our dogs start out. So if you have a young puppy, that's awesome, because we can teach them from the beginning how to do this correctly. Cyrus is about 4.5 months old while I'm doing this video. So he's had a few nail trims at this point, probably 3 or so, and they've all been pretty positive. So he enjoys nail time more than your average dog, but it's still pretty new to him. So it's still something that we're working on. For my older dogs, they did not enjoy having their nails done. Cairo was fairly aggressive when I would try to do his nails, and Bindi was pretty terrified when I would try to do hers. So a lot of people, because they have a hard time doing their own dog's nails, they send their dog to a professional to get done, which is fine. I have absolutely no problem with that. I understand a lot of people are not comfortable with potentially quicking their dog. They're not comfortable with seeing blood, or they're not comfortable with kind of being able to gauge that. They don't want to hurt their dog. They want to leave that to a professional, which is awesome. So I have no problem with that. If you are going to have a veterinarian or a groomer do it, however, you still should do the training. And the reason for that is a lot of dogs, I hear a lot of clients tell me that their dogs do better with the veterinarian or do better with the groomer, especially they do better when the owner isn't present. And that may be because they have a rapport built up with that professional and they feel comfortable with that professional. More likely what's happening is they actually are in a state of what we call learned helplessness, which is basically all of their support system is gone. Their people aren't there, they don't have anything familiar, they're in a totally unknown area, they're around a lot of other dogs that are very stressed. They're in a situation where they're usually trapped, they're usually restrained either with leashes or with multiple people holding them down. So they're in a situation where they have absolutely no way to really defend themselves, and they have no support system, and so what happens is they just shut down. And so that's not what we're looking for. We don't want a dog that just gives up and is like, fine, just do it, we'll get through this eventually. Instead, there's a fly. Instead, I want a dog that's like, yes, please trim my nails, right? That's what I'm looking for. So if you are gonna have a professional do it, we still want to make sure that we're doing the training at home so that when the dog goes to that professional, they have a positive experience and they actually enjoy having their nails done. So whether or not you are comfortable trimming your dog's nails, doesn't matter. I still do all of this training with them either way. So when we're talking about trimming nails, you can use actual nail clippers, you can use a Dremel, you can use a file, you can use a product called a scratch board, which actually allows the dog to trim their own nails. So scratch boards are pretty cool. It's basically just a board with a piece of sandpaper on it, and we teach the puppy how to dig at it. And so they can actually file their own nails down that way. So there's lots of different tools that you can use. For me personally, and again, I'm not a groomer, but once I found these nail clippers, I'm never going to go back ever to anything else ever. So these are kind of the scissor style nail clippers. They're made by a company called Miller's Forge. So Miller's Forge nail trimmers, the scissor style, the red handle ones, these are my favorite and I love them. And basically as soon as I found these, I got rid of all of my other nail clippers. If you are going to use clippers, you want to make sure they're sharp. I think a big issue that we run into is that our nail clippers get dull over time, or maybe you just got ones that aren't as sharp as this style. And so if that's the case, what happens is when you go to clip their nail, it does this big like ka-chunk type sound, and it usually kind of splits the nail or cracks the nail. It also has to apply a lot of pressure before it finally clips through. So that makes a lot of dogs super uncomfortable, and it's just, you don't have as much precision. Like I said, it ends up cracking the nail, so you have more issues. The nail gets really jagged. So get sharp nail trimmers. If you don't have sharp nail trimmers, these ones I think are like $9. They're not super expensive. They're not super fancy. I got these at Petco. I don't know if they still have those, that brand, but you can find them online too. So definitely get sharp ones. And then what you can do is you can always go back and file the nails too to kind of smooth them out, or you can use a Dremel. So Dremels are great. I'm not super comfortable using them just because I haven't really practiced that much with them, but I know plenty of people love the Dremels, and that's totally fine too. So whatever you're most comfortable with is fine. And again, if you are going to have someone else do it, you still want to prepare your dog for it. So it's still worth it to have a set of tools that you can work on practicing with. So two main options when we're teaching our dogs how to get their nails done. One is to use food as a distraction, and one is to use food as a reward. So if we're using food as a distraction, what that means is I'm going to put the food out. I want the puppy just focused on the food the whole time, and I'm going to go through and kind of get my job done while the puppy is busy. That works. Something that I do a lot of time in the beginning when I don't have the skills on board yet, when my dog doesn't know how to do this game. But it's not my favorite option because you're not actually teaching the dog how to get their nails done. You're teaching them how to tolerate it while they're working on food. So it is a tool in the toolbox. It's not my favorite tool in the toolbox, but it can be a good starting point. You only want to do that if you have a puppy that is not resource guardy around food. So if they maybe are going to be a little bit defensive or a little bit uncomfortable while they're eating and not want to be handled at that moment, then you don't want to use the food as a distraction option. But if your dog is super comfortable being handled while they're working on food, then you could use something like a licky mat. That's a really common one. So it's actually a product you can buy. You smear peanut butter or canned food or something to that effect on it, and they can sit there and lick and lick and lick. A stuffed Kong can work. Kongs are harder because the dog can roll them around, so sometimes they're a moving target when you're trying to get their nails done. So the licky mat is a nice option because it's still. What I have today is literally just a plate that I slimed some canned food and kibble onto, and then I put just a little bit of water on it, and then I just put the whole plate in the freezer. So, oh look, one fell off. So he can sit and work on this for a minute. He's going to go through this super fast. There's just a few pieces of kibble on here, but I just kind of want to show you what this looks like. So basically, I just set up their food as a distraction, and I want to kind of touch the puppy as he's eating. Again, this is not something I do with dogs that already are a little uncomfortable being handled during food. This is just for dogs that are already comfortable with this. If your dog is not already comfortable with that, we can do separate training to work on that. So he's just going to sit here and work on his food, and I just work on kind of touching all over. So whenever we're teaching anything that's a little bit more invasive, we want to do what we call desensitizing. And desensitizing is not getting the puppy used to it by kind of just going in and waiting for them to get over it. Desensitizing is going in very small steps and gradually building up the challenge. So in the beginning, I'm just touching his body, and then I'm gonna work my way down to touching his toes. And if he's doing pretty well with me touching his toes, maybe I'll hold for a second and then let him go back to eating. Hold for a second, let him go back, hold for a second. And see how he's kind of flinching there? He doesn't really want me touching that foot. That's a little bit harder for him to balance on. He's not as comfortable with that as he is with the front feet. So just his little body language there is enough for me to know that I'm not quite ready for that yet, which is fine. We can work up to that more in a future session, but the point is I just want to go slowly enough that I'm not jumping ahead. So I touched his body, I touched his toes, I practiced picking it up for a second. Now I can practice picking it up, touching his toes for a second, and then putting his paw back down, picking it up, touching his toes for a second, and then putting his paw back down. And then eventually I could hold his paw, clip a nail, and then put his paw back down that way. So you can work up to it. Like I said, he's gonna go through this super fast, so not quite long enough for me to be able to actually do nails. See, that foot's pretty sensitive. See how he doesn't really like that? He keeps kind of flinching around. So I just wanna go at my puppy's pace. If they're telling me that they're not really comfortable with what I'm doing, then I need to back up a step and make it easier. I don't expect to get all the way from never having their nails done to perfectly standing and having all of their nails done right away all in the first session. It's going to take multiple sessions to build that up. So session number 1, you might just work on petting him. And session number 2, you might work on petting down his feet. And then session number 3, you might work on petting down his feet and then maybe kind of massaging the top of his foot a little bit. And you can build up to eventually picking up that foot, clipping a nail, putting it back down, all while he's working on his food there. So that's one option. Like I said, it's not teaching him how to have his nails done, but it is reinforcing. It is teaching him that when my nails are getting done, something good is happening. I'm getting this whole plate of goodies. So it's not the worst thing. It's still creating a positive association. And it's in a situation where he is basically giving consent. He's standing here voluntarily. I'm not restraining him. I'm not forcing him to be here, but he's able to kind of hang out with me. So that's one option. The other option, which is always what I want to work towards, is teaching him how to have his nails done by using this food more as a reward. So what I do for this, you left a goodie here. I do a whole body handling exercise that builds up to this, so I'm not going to go into too much detail with that here, but basically I want to do the same thing. I want to desensitize him to having his nails done, but I want to do it in the order of touch his foot, yes, and then feed him a treat. Touch his foot, stop touching and say yes, and give him a treat. Touch his foot, stop touching and say yes, and give him a treat. It's always in that same pattern. And even when I have an adult dog that's really good at this, I still do that same pattern. I still give a treat after every single nail. I don't have to with my older dogs, and sometimes if I'm in a hurry, I might do 3 or 4 nails before I give a treat. But in general, I tend to do 1 treat per nail once they're complete with this training, once they're advanced with this. Yes. And then in the beginning, I'm just doing all those little baby steps. I'm just picking up his foot, giving him a treat, and then picking up his foot and touching a nail, and then giving him a treat. There you go. Picking up a foot, spreading his toes, really lining up that nail and messing with it. Yes. And then give him a treat. And like I said, he's done this before, so he's pretty calm with this. And I've also done that body handling exercise with him before, so he's not so bad. Touch his nails with the clippers, yes, and then give him a treat. And then as he's showing me that he's comfortable, I'll just start kind of fake trimming. So I still squeeze the clippers just like I would normally trim a nail, but I didn't actually trim it. I just kind of squeezed it over his toes. So even if you're not comfortable actually trimming nails, you can still go all the way up to this step. Pick up his foot, line up his nail, fake trim, yes, and then give him a treat. Good. If you are getting him used to a Dremel, you're also going to have to practice teaching him that the sound of the Dremel and the feeling of that vibration of the Dremel is also okay. There he pulled on me a little bit, so I just want to wait to give him a second to make sure he's actually comfortable with this. And then when I'm actually ready to trim a nail, what I do, how I think about this, and again, I'm not a groomer or a vet, but if your dog's nails are an appropriate length and the quick is how it's supposed to be, then what dog nails look like is it's thick and it goes to a little point and then it curves. And that curve, that's the hook. That's what's going to go away. So everything that's in this big triangle part, usually the quick lives in there, and then the hook is extra. So what I do when I trim nails is I line up my clippers on the nail and I slide straight forward, so my clippers are feeling that bottom flat part of the nail, and then they'll catch where it hooks, if that kind of makes sense. So right when my nail trimmers catch, I slide out, I angle 45 degrees away from the dog, and I clip. So if you think about that triangle and that hook, I'm sliding the nail clippers along. Right when it catches that hook on the bottom there, I'm gonna angle it and then clip the nail right at that spot. I'm gonna go back and trim that up a little bit and kind of round it all out, but that's my initial shortening the nail clip part of it. So put it on his nail, slide to the end, yes, and then give him a goodie. Did you get it? Okay. Put it on his nail, slide to the end. As soon as it catches, right there it caught, clip, yes, and then give him a goodie. And I know the sound's probably kind of low anyway, so it's probably hard to hear, but you probably can't really hear, you can barely hear me clipping that nail because my nail clippers are sharp. All right, that's why it's so quiet. Slide it along, catch, clip, yes, and then he gets a goodie for it. All right, now I know we're showing off because he's good at this, but it doesn't take too many repetitions to teach your dog that this is okay if you follow the protocol. If you always go in the same order, nothing bad ever happens. We just work on teaching him that the contact produces the yes, produces the treat. All right, I never touch after I say yes. So once I get all lined up, yes, I don't touch anymore, and then he gets his goodie. And I only do this as long as he's hanging out here, as long as he's choosing to participate and he wants to stay and play the game. If at any point he walked away, we'd be done. That's it. It's not a big deal. I just let him be done. So I'm only gonna keep doing this as long as he wants to play. There, see how he's pulling his paw away right there? So that's something, that was him telling me I didn't really like that. That was a little uncomfortable. So I'm gonna make that easier. I'm just gonna pick up his foot, yes, and then give him a treat. Pick up his foot, touch with the clippers, yes, and then give him a treat. So I just backtracked a little bit because he was like, it's freaking me out a little. Good boy. So I slowed down just a little bit. Yes. And again, if you don't want to clip, just do fake clips. Fake clips are totally fine. Oh gosh, we're itchy. So when your dog gets really itchy like that, it could be that he's itchy. There's a fly that's kind of pestering him right now. Or it could be that he's a little bit worked up and he wants to go scratch for a second to help him kind of come back down and relax. And so I don't worry about that, but I do pay attention to it. If he's doing a lot of itching during our session, then it might be that we're going a little bit too fast for him. But see how he came back? He's like, here's my toes. Let's go and do that again. So that lets me know that it's not too big of a deal. He's ready to continue. But just always give him breaks. If he wants to take a break, that's totally fine. He's allowed to take breaks. Not a big deal. And like I said, the very first time I work on this, I'm probably not going to trim nails. I'm probably just going to start really slowly and get him used to the process. And then we'll work up to trimming nails as he gets better. But get a sharp set of clippers because that'll change your life. A couple other things. If you do have a dog that their quicks have grown out, how you trim their nails is going to be very different. There's actually a protocol for getting those quicks to kind of recede back. If you guys are on Facebook, there's a Facebook group called Nail Maintenance for Dogs, I believe. And there are units in there that you can read through and really figure out exactly how to get those nails right where you want them. It's a positive reinforcement group, so they're going to do a similar training procedure to teach dogs how to be comfortable with nail trims. And then it tells you exactly how to trim them to keep those nails nice and short and get those quicks to kind of recede back too. Basically, we don't just chunk the end and then be done. I get it short enough with that 45-degree trick I was telling you, and then I kind of sliver little pieces of nail off to get it nice and short and close to that quick so it stays at an appropriate level. So Nail Maintenance for Dogs is a good Facebook group to join if you want to learn more about how to keep those nails nice and healthy. And then also, if you do have to get the nails done, if they're just too long, we don't necessarily have time to go through the training. If you have a dog that really is traumatized by nail trims and it's going to take a lot more than a couple of sessions to get them where you want them, I have no problem using medication to help get the process done, to help your dog get healthy. So again, nail maintenance is a big piece of their physical health. I need to make sure that I'm maintaining their nails, otherwise we're going to run into other problems. So if you need to get your dog's nails done, talk to your vet or groomer about using medication and see if that'll help. You can do either an anti-anxiety medication to help them kind of relax during nail trims, or if you're having your vet do it, they can actually fully sedate the dog so that you can get it done that way. What I do not recommend is having a dog that you know is stressed out about nail trims, going to a professional and just having them muscle through it. Because the more they muscle through this process, the more traumatized your dog is going to get, and the harder it's going to be to get them to the point where you can do this on a more regular basis. So if you are at that stage where you have a dog that's already traumatized, you need to get their nails done, chat with your veterinarian about some medication and see what your options are. Once those nails are nice and short, then you can spend some time doing some training, so hopefully by the time you need to get the nails done again, your dog is a lot more comfortable with that process. You can absolutely use muzzles too to kind of help out to make sure that no one's getting injured, but I recommend also doing muzzle training. It should be a positive thing to put that muzzle on, not a stressful thing to put the muzzle on. So if you pull out your dog's muzzle and they stick their face into it, you're doing good. If you pull out that muzzle and they flee, not doing so good. If you pull out your nail trimmers and they're like, yes, please, let's do the game, you're doing good. If you pull out the nail trimmers and they go hide under the bed, not so much. So your dog is going to tell you if you've done a good job or not. If they're worried about it, we need to back up a little bit and spend a little bit more time training. And like I said, maybe medications are going to be a good option for you to help the dog fast track a little bit and get them where you want them. And again, make sure they stay nice and healthy. What else? Is there anything else that's exciting about nails? I think that's it for now. You're a good boy. So, good luck. I hope that gives you some ideas. You can use food as a distraction in the beginning. You can use food as a reward for allowing you to go through that process. So you trim the nail, yes, give a treat. You want to always desensitize, so you want to go in really small steps and gradually build up as your dog is ready. And you want to consent test. So if your dog is not voluntarily participating, if they're not hanging out with you based on their own choice, then we want to reevaluate. You want to make sure that this is fun and positive enough for the dog that they choose to opt in. They choose to participate with you. If at any point they're like, no thanks, that's fine. Give them a break, let them be done. Maybe reevaluate your training protocol to see if maybe you're going too far too fast. But sometimes they just want a break, so that's okay too. Katya is my 3-year-old female, and she needs lots of breaks. She's fine getting her nails done. She does it willingly. She gives consent through the whole process. She offers her paw to get her nails done, but I can usually do about 4, maybe 5 nails before she needs to just kind of go lay down somewhere else for a minute, kind of figure herself out, and then she'll come back for more. And that's totally fine. I just let her take those breaks. And what I've noticed is since I allow those breaks, she's actually taking them less and less often as she gets older, which is pretty cool. So if they know they have the option to say no, then oftentimes they'll say yes a lot more willingly. So that's kind of your starting point. And then, like I said, if you're having a professional do it, make sure that it's still positive for your dog, as positive as possible. So training can help with that. Food as a distraction can help with that. And then some anti-anxiety medication might be your next option if you need a little bit more help. All right, so good luck, have fun. If you have any questions about nails, ask them in the comments. I'd love to chat more about this and about what I do with my own dogs. I don't know where he's going. So we can definitely continue the conversation there. Here, good boy. And good luck, have fun, happy training.